Ruyaga wa Tekibokuro! Do you want to be that guy when playing Overwatch? Is the opinion of your and your enemy's teammates irrelevant to you? Could you care less about the fact that there's already 3 Hanzos on your team? Well, if the answer to all of the above questions is yes, you should play Hanzo. If the answer to all of the above questions is no, you should still play Hanzo. But also watch this video as it will dramatically increase your ability to play this awesomely annoying hero. In my humble opinion, Hanzo's one of the coolest heroes in the game. He's like the Rambo of Overwatch. I mean, one thing I really don't get is why is he considered a defensive hero? I mean, for one, he's the only hero in the game with all of his abilities, including his ultimate, having the ability to headshot your opponents and pretty much deal damage to anyone. But, as usual, this video will consist of 5 parts. Basic stats, ultimate ability staff, damage done, damage taken, and elite tips and tricks. And the timestamps are in the description.
Number 1.
Before starting this section, I'll get the rabbit out of the hat and risk getting myself flamed in the comment section. If your Twitch aiming skills are not amazing, you are going to have a bad time. The fact that the arrows, when minimally charged, have one of the lowest travel speeds of any projectile in the game make Hanzo so much harder to play. I'll discuss the arrow travel time and damage buildup in part 3 in depth, so stay tuned for that. But that being said, if he can reliably score headshots with Hanzo, he can absolutely dominate and carry any game. Now, Hanzo can be highly effective both during offense and defense due to his versatility. The ultimate ability is one of the best initiations in the game and can reliably allow your team to push a point or force enemies to break formation and scatter for easy picks. Hanzo's Sonic Arrow is as good as Widow's ultimate, if not better, as it has a severely smaller cooldown, yet provides almost the same duration, 10 seconds for Hanzo compared to 15.5 for Widow. Moreover, Widowmaker's ultimate has a sound cue. You need to be really close to her to hear it, but she does have a sound cue. Hanzo's arrow does not have a sound cue, or a visual cue for that matter, allowing you to be completely invisible to your enemies. Did I also mention that the arrow deals damage, allowing you to one-shot enemies as well as provide useful information to your team? It is worth pointing out that Reaper can Wraith form and Tracer can recall out of the debuff, but it's still really useful. You might argue with me claiming that Widow's ability affects everyone on the map. However, in most competitive games, the enemies attack in waves, all clumped up together, allowing for maximum utility from your arrow. So before we get into discussing Hanzo's Scatter Arrow, let me just discuss his ultimate ability first.
Number 2.
During your first few hundred games in Overwatch, you might think that Hanzo's ultimate is overpowered to the max, but in reality, it's really not. Granted, if you're caught off guard, it might do some severe damage or even kill you, but generally, both the audio and the visual cue are enough to get away from the damage area. Knowing that, while playing Hanzo, don't expect to get pentakills with it. Rather, use it as an ability to break enemy formations and scatter them. The ultimate itself has an AFK recharge rate of exactly 4 minutes, while getting 2.5% on minimal bow charge and 10% on maximum bow charge for body shots, and 5% on minimal and 20% on max bow charge for headshots. The Sonic Arrow and Primary Scatter Arrow will add the same percentage as your regular arrows, while each Scattered Arrow will add 6%. When you use the ultimate as Hanzo, you will fire a blue arrow, which can travel through walls and shields like those on Reinhardt, and headshot people. Though after 5 meters, regardless if that arrow hit someone or did not, it will transform into dragons or wolves, depending on your skin, which will follow a straight line in the direction the arrow was fired until they reach the edge of the map. The dragons will deal damage in a 4-meter sphere radius, just like on D.Va, and the closer you are to the center, the more damage you will take, with the maximum being 300 to 310 DPS directly in the middle. It takes the dragons exactly 3 seconds to pass any given point, allowing for a theoretical maximum damage of 930 on a single player. The ultimate has a severe damage fall-off at range, reducing to only 100 DPS at ranges over 100 meters. It is worth pointing out that Hanzo's ultimate can only be reflected by Genji or blocked by D.Va's defense matrix.
Number 3.
So damage, eh? Well, Hanzo's got you covered. As mentioned prior, every Hanzo's ability can headshot and deal damage. Let's start with the basics. Hanzo's regular shots. At minimal charge, and when firing at unarmored targets, they will deal 29 damage and travel at 26 meters per second, which is one of the slowest moving projectiles in the game. At a full charge, The arrow will do 125 damage and travel at 66.66 meters per second, which is the fastest moving projectile in the game. What is the drawback, you might ask? It is the time it takes between each shot. By default, it will take you 0.5 seconds between each shot and another 0.5 to 0.7 to fully charge. In the long run, if you manage to hit all of your shots while fully charging your arrows, you will provide an additional 66% DPS increase. However, there are still times when you use your uncharged arrow. Firstly, you move slightly faster without the fully charging your arrows. Although there is a way to get around that, which we will cover in a later section. Secondly, you might not need a full charge to finish off an opponent who's on low HP, and lastly, you can use the melee arrow combo, which might I point out works on all variations of draws. And the way to perform this is by doing a quick melee right after you fire. At closer distances, by minimally charging your arrows and adding melees, you can deal quite a hefty bit of extra damage. Now let's talk about Sonic Arrow and Scattershot. Sonic Arrow will deal the same damage as a normal arrow. Scattershot will also deal the same damage unless the arrow scatters before impact. When broken, the arrow will explode into 5 smaller arrows, each dealing 75 damage for a total of 375 to unarmored targets. I must add that the damage of your small arrows is based on the charge of your primary arrow. At a full charge, each fragment will deal 75 damage, while at a minimal charge, each will deal 17 damage. As you can see, the damage difference of 29 to 17 is not as devastating as 125 to 75, meaning you can use Scattershot to finish off heavily wounded opponents without really aiming at them. It is worth pointing out that only the initial arrow can headshot enemies, while the scattered arrows cannot. Another point worth mentioning for all of you physics fans out there is the fact that the physics in Overwatch are deterministic, meaning if you fire your scatter arrow at the exact same spot from the exact same position twice, the scattered arrows will always fly in the same direction. If you can reliably headshot with the initial arrow, it is sometimes worth it, as not all of the scatter arrows will hit the target. All in all, Hanzo has a great variety of damage abilities he can use, granting him amazing flexibility.
Number 4.
Having only 200 health points and no defensive or escape mechanics, Hanzo's arguably the squishiest hero in the game. His wall climb ability grants him verticality, sure, but it will not save you if skilled enemies jump you. This means that you must have amazing map awareness and knowledge of where your enemies are at all times. Combined with the extremely difficult bow mechanics, these two factors make Hanzo one of the hardest heroes to master in Overwatch. Honestly, there is not much to go on in this section. General rule of thumb is, if you get jumped, you die.
Number 5.
As always, this section will combine tips and tricks from previous sections, as well as add a few awesome additional ones. Number 1. The headshot hitbox on most heroes is actually way bigger than their actual head, allowing you to headshot them from around corners without actually seeing the head of the enemy. This means you should always be trying to hit the enemies in the head. Number 2. Use your ultimate ability to scatter enemies and break their formation instead of trying to kill them. Number 3. Always use your Sonic Arrow when off cooldown, as it will massively help you and your team locate and predict enemy movements. Number 4. As your ultimate ability can travel through walls, use that fact to ambush enemies and use it from unexpected places. Number 5. Know when to use your minimum and maximum bow charges, in addition to knowing how to use the melee and arrow combo for extra damage at close range. Number 6. Your scatter arrow damage is based on the bow charge as well. Number 7. You can get 2 Sonic Arrows at the start of the game by firing 1 Sonic Arrow in the air directly above yourself. After exactly 18 seconds, the arrow will land, allowing you to use a second Sonic Arrow in just 2 seconds. Number 8. When your arrow is maximally charged, your movement speed is drastically decreased. You can get around that by jumping right before you start to fire your shot, allowing you to retain the full movement speed even while maximally charging your shots. Number 9. I think everyone has already said this, but I feel I cannot leave this out, so do not fire your scatter shot directly at the enemy, unless you're going for guaranteed headshots. Fire it into the ground, under his feet, so the scatter arrows explode into the enemy. And number 10, don't be that guy and play 3 Hanzos in a competitive match when your team clearly needs a healer or a tank.
Conclusions.
Hanzo is one of those heroes you need to invest countless hours to master, but can be extremely rewarding when perfected. His damage potential is unrivaled by anyone. Granted, you can land headshots with each shot. He can help his team push points and provide assistance to the team. Just don't get too obsessed with him. I would like to say a massive thank you to TheHappyPenguin for helping me test everything out. You should totally check out his channel, the link is in the description. Also, I cannot believe my Reinhardt video just hit like 2.5 thousand views, man. Guys, that is awesome! Anyway, don't forget to subscribe and leave comments with the feedback or just general ideas on how I can improve my guides. And of course, this is Thirst, and always stay thirsty for more
knowledge.